A car that is arguably the most beautiful in the Peugeot lineup at this moment gets now an interesting update or facelift. But the question is, why does the Peugeot 408 lives in this kind of niche existence? We're going to find out with Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the new flare green color, which perfectly matches the background. Look at that, these flowers here. Some, yellow bloom on that, and this has these yellow nuances also inside the paint when the sunlight is hitting it, so that is looking pretty stunning. And indeed, I think already a stunning exterior in the front. With the facelift here, with the update, you get new additional vertical daytime running lights here in the front, also the illuminated badge here, the Peugeot badge. Oh, my shadow is very practical in this moment because then you can see it better. And the GT, which is standing right here. This trim also gets the matrix LED. This is the daytime running light. The main headlamp unit is then here in the lower part. The GT already comes with some extra equipment. Soon going to take a look at that on the interior especially. Then wheel-wise, you would start 17-inch for the mild hybrid, 19-inch would be standard for the plug-in or the electric one, and this is here the option for 20-inch wheels. The biggest ones that are available here in this asymmetric style, so this triggers my OCD a little bit because they are never like on the same level. But this is triggering my sense of beauty because it's a beautiful stretch roof line. 4.69 meters, 185 inches, and I think that makes it also so stunning, so unique indeed in this lineup. Of course, the Peugeot 3008 is a little bit more practical for the family, but this one has this visual focus, also very modern here with the tail lamps and the illuminated Peugeot lettering in the rear. So I think visually wise, definitely stunning. This is the GT trim, but it says here plug-in because it seems to be that when they have the plug-in badging here, that you cannot put the GT badging here. So the electric one would have E408 on the left, and then it says GT here on the right, but then you couldn't put the plug-in badge. And a very strong black cladding here in the lower part. This is mostly the plain black plastic though. It's a front-wheel drive architecture, and you would start with the mild hybrid 1.2 liter 3-cylinder. It's a little bit small, of course, but you keep the lowest entry price. Then you have the plug-in hybrid, which has the electric charging flap here on this side. Sadly, you start with 3.7 kilowatt in charging. That's not enough. But optionally, which is also equipped with this vehicle here, you go for 7.4 kilowatt AC charging. At least that. But I think for a plug-in hybrid nowadays, the 11 kilowatt charging should be standard. Battery net capacity here is now at 14.6 kilowatt hours net. That's really the net capacity. Also not the biggest one for a plug-in hybrid, gotta say that. However, you have the advantage that you can not only drive electric then here with this one, but you also get the bigger combustion engine under the hood. So this then here then the 4-cylinder, contrast to the mild hybrid, 1.6 liter of displacement, and this one gets 240 horsepower system. Wow, that looks impressive. So we're getting a free air show here today. What about that? Merci beaucoup, because we're filming around the Marseille area here today. And then here, as I said, 4-cylinder, 1.6 liter of displacement, 240 horsepower system output, 7.5 seconds in the acceleration figure. So this has received a small power upgrade, and they also worked on the energy management. So the plug-in hybrid is supposed to be now a little bit more efficient, that you also get more pure electric range. And now it's time to check out this interior and see if there are any changes there and how interesting is that. But tell me in the comments what you think about this exterior styling here of the Peugeot 408. Now to the interior, classic PSA key fob, and then here solid door handles and solid door closing sound as well, even from the rear, so that's nice. Then inside of the doors, it's also soft touch, nice structure. Then we have here some microfiber inserts in the GT and classic controls of the windows and so on. Hard pack here, everything at the inside of the doors, and the Peugeot entry sill badge, that looks nice. Oh, even here the floor mats with these contrast stitches here on the exterior, on the outside. Then here the GT steering wheel perforation on the outside, GT badge. Then here we have setting the cruise control, rear buttons, right side for the volume, for example. It is this very small steering wheel, definitely, and then depending on the position, it does block the instruments a little bit. You have these 10-inch HD instruments with a even 3-dimensional layer. When you have the GT pack, and then you also get these sporty seats with fabric on the inside and these neon contrast on the outside. This is then a leather red, so the seat is animal free, the steering wheel not. option, you can also get microfiber for the inside of these seats. That would also give you like even more some kind of premium touch. The seats themselves, they are actually quite nice and comfortable, but you see that they're quite low in the vehicle. So sometimes even for me as a tall person, it can make sense to pump it up. You hold the seat a little bit here in the manual way because you see like how I sit in the vehicle. And that might also be the thing that taller people say, hey, that's why I switched to the SUV, to the 3008, because of the like more, you know, better angle in the seating position. In the lowest position here, headroom, still some space left, 1A9, 6'2". And now to the cockpit, steering wheel, up and down, in and out. I would usually drive probably like this, but then it gets too close here with the knees. But then if I put the steering wheel higher, then I can't see the digital instruments that well. So they are kind of like blocked. This is not ideal indeed. And then here you have some structure here, also a little bit softer. The glove box falls down in a smooth way, also nicely covered from the inside. Contour stitches here on the top again. And then this touchscreen is somewhat kind of slow. Rear view camera is also not that cool in the resolution. It is an outdated system, gonna say that, and things take ages to switch sometimes when you switch to a different menu and so on. It just takes time. At least you have these hotkeys in the lower part here. So these you can individualize yourself what you want to see here. And the lower part, and they also work quite well. And they're also nice from the tactile feeling and so on. And then here also manual control for the volume. Inductive charging pit is an option, but not ventilated. In the lower part, USB-C charging, some more space. And cup holders are 2-dot design adaptive, or you can just close this area. Then I'm not sure what you would put there actually. Also it's probably like flying around all the time. Then it's also soft for your elbow then, and then have this nice split opening. And here you can see this is exactly the angle where you can trigger the light. So it's nice that it's like connected here. That's favorite feature. Yeah, that's my favorite feature here, like engineering in action indeed. And the driver POV. I mean, it's on the one hand cool to have this small steering wheel, but then again this setup, I understand that they don't want to use a head-up display then, but as I said, it's sometimes tough to see them when the steering wheel is kind of like in the way. And this is the Apple CarPlay integration, and most of the time, you see here the reaction of the screen is sometimes not as it should be, but still most of the time you would use the Apple CarPlay integration because the infotainment system is not the most modern one. And pretty cool, this is still a roof you can actually really open. So yeah, almost some convertible feeling in here. And other than that, if you close it, you also have this shade. This is a practical manual shade because when it's really sunny, it's also easily and quickly closed. And what's pretty cool here, the window, side window in the front with lamination. That's nice. You have that in the front, but not in the rear. And the rear seats, first of all, this is the now hardback on the top here, but still the microfiber inserts we have. Then the seats are nice because you have the very good feeling fabric and the good quality leatherette here as well. Then in the middle part, you have these cup holders. They have these inserts that you can have like smaller drinks. Let's take it that way. Ski hatch is also included here. Then two USB-C chargers in the middle part. And well, I can sit here as tall adult because it's quite long, so that's nice. If I would put the seat a little bit higher, then you can see, and that would actually be wise, because of the angle, then it would be even more legroom in this lower part. But you see, it's maybe not the most ideal seating position for a tall adult here, but this even raises again that I could still actually sit here. It looks maybe a little bit funny, but it still works. Trunk or boot, there are actually 6 different values because it depends on mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid, electric, and then also with or without the focal sound system. And this one here is the worst setup with 410 liters because this is plug-in hybrid and the focal sound system, so you have the least amount of space. But here still the trolley fits in a vertical way underneath, and then we have a length, normal length of 37 inches or 94 centimeters. The width here is a good meter or 40 inches, and the height, this is the most limited one with the plug-in hybrid, only about 60 centimeters or 24 inches. And the full length, 4K full length here to the seats, this is here 1.75 meters, 69 inches. So that's actually quite a decent. But of course you lose height here because of this roof line. Underneath here with the plug-in hybrid, you can still store a charging cable right there. And then there's also this, this is usually I think like like this or something. There's also like here this hook stored. So if you want to feel like Captain Hook, then you can use it like this. And as far as I have understood, it's like this, and that you can then access the charging cable underneath. Starting to drive the updated Peugeot 408 with the plug-in hybrid we have here in the GT trim, and we have 20-inch wheels mounted. So that is then the largest wheel combination that is possible, and we'll see if that can still keep up with the comfort. Of course, if you want more comfort, the 19-inch wheels that come standard with the plug-in or the electric one, better choice than for the comfort. And the mild hybrid version you can also get with smaller wheels. It's silent, it also fits here to the insulated windows. We have the lamination in the windows, and that will probably also... what the hell? So these were some influencers there in that car going through the crossed line, and they're smoking in the car. Like, a manufacturer gives you a vehicle which is not your own, and you start, windows down, loud music, smoking, and then you accelerate out like to 200 over a crossed line, violating traffic laws. Yeah, that's not our understanding of how to do the job, but yeah, not sure if Peugeot knows that. Well, get back to our business. So yeah, so because we're driving here within the electric mode of the plug-in hybrid now at 80 kilometers an hour. Let's go a little bit quicker, like 90 kilometers an hour, because that's allowed here. We will not overspeed. So about 50-55 miles an hour, and so far it's actually nice and silent. You feel that you have this lamination here in the window, and that is even more important if you have the plug-in hybrid or the all-electric version of that one, because there's no engine noise that could cover that up in a way, you know. Soon we'll also drive with the engine on, and in a way, of course, here you get the 4-cylinder engine, whereas in the mild hybrid version you only get the 3-cylinder. So even if the battery is depleted here, you have here the engine with just a bigger displacement, and you know, there's no replacement for displacement unless you have electric power. That's the thing, really. Here, using the brake, then you also see in the instruments that it's doing the recuperation, and so far there's actually a nice transition. Sometimes you cannot, you know, go in a very smooth way, but here throttle and brake pedal is nicely adjusted, and well, the road is somewhat even here, but we have some transverse bumps here and there. But I think the suspension is good compromise here, that it's not too sporty, but also not, you know, too wobbly or something. Here, when I try to shake up the vehicle, it's still remaining very, very calm. Leah seems to be pretty relaxed as well. Yeah, she was just yawning. Oh, that's actually a good sign, you know. Yeah. Thank you for that. You know, Leah is my personal GPS assistant as well, and also personal assistant to turn off annoying speed chime things. And so, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but here I think found a nice setup, and it is fun to drive. Definitely here with that compact steering wheel and the suspension setup. Here with the 20-inch wheels, of course, you always have the somewhat sportier setup, and it's also doing a nice job here on the motorway. Talked about the seating position earlier, that the seats themselves are actually quite nice and comfortable. However, the seating position itself in the car, how the seat is put in the car, is not. Does let me in? No. It's not ideal for tall people. Let's take it that way, because you see also like relatively high here with my knees. Don't have much space for my left foot, for example, to let it rest next to the brake pedal, so that could be better. I think it's quite nice. We have the panoramic roof we can also close when there's no camera hanging there and it's really hot, but also completely open for fresh air if we want some fresh air. So that's a really pleasant experience. So it drives very well, actually. It's fun, and it kind of holds what it promises on the exterior. And I think this smooth driving experience, the all-electric one here in the electric PHEV mode, is really nice. And here, for example, of course, typical situations, we want to go to the motorway, but then there's little traffic here. Then you have no local emission, and it's also more efficient than, of course, to have this electric mode. I was driving in the electric mode intentionally, but if things that happen here.
We can go right.
Can we? Can we go right?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, but we just have to watch out. I mean, in situations where you might want a harder acceleration, you could also use then both engine powers at the same time, but let's see. But also was also fine in the electric mode as well. So that was actually, yeah, I think we can stay here even. So really happy with the electric mode. And soon when we drive even more agile, I'll also take you on the tour then of the hybrid performance of that engine here. And here now we can drive a little bit quicker or faster, 110 kilometers an hour, like 65 miles an hour, still silent enough due to this lamination in the window. And what is very interesting here, I have this application drawer, so energy, and you can see what's going on. And here I'm in a hybrid mode now. At the moment this engine is on, but when I go off the throttle, for example, or when I'm a little bit on the brake, engine goes off. So in the hybrid mode it goes back and forth, but depending on the situation. And if I switch to the sport mode, it always takes 2-3 seconds, a little bit too slow, I would say. Now in the sport mode, engine is then directly on. And here 80 to 110. That's it already. Sometimes when you accelerate full and then do a cornering lane change or something, the steering gets a little bit light. It's front wheel drive, but it's only like when you really floor it down. The question is then how often would you really floor it down in that respect? This one probably you wouldn't watch while driving, but here is for us now a good showcase to see what the engine is doing. If you're not flooring this engine and drive it rather smoothly and so on, you gotta say that you hardly notice if the engine is on or off. That's why I also made this visualization, because before, when I'm really driving more steady and smooth, I couldn't even tell you when the engine was on or not. So here, for example, I would have not realized myself. So I think they also have insulated that engine from the cabin very well. And we have some nice countryside routes here for you. Let's see about the agile part of this vehicle. And here also the road is not that even comparing to the French motorway we have just been driving, and still fine. Yes, here when there are like small bumps in the road, then you feel that you would have more comfort with 19-inch, so that makes a difference with the 20-inch. And here this arcade style steering is also fun then here in the corners. Then you feel the suspension is also in a good balance, again, not too sporty, but also not, like set in the other direction too much or something. They've really found a good average, I would say.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a nice view.
A nice
back
view
to city of Marseille. How did you feel in the corners?
Good.
It's good.
Because you sit so low here.
Ah, yeah.
And then
I mean, that might be something like an advantage in comparison to an SUV. This is, more a crossover, I would say. And that's a good thing. On the other hand, the disadvantage is that, as I said, when you're tall, then you feel kind of cramped in, It feels like a small vehicle, which is on the one hand a good thing for driving, but on the other hand not that good for tall drivers, So that's, back and forth how you want to take it. But the driving is definitely fun. So what do you say? From the exterior, I think definitely stunning. I think most can agree on that. On the interior, it doesn't have too much space. That's the critical issue, because then for more interior space, most go for the Peugeot 3008 for the SUV, and then you don't have this rather cramped interior. Because, if you're smaller than me, maybe not a problem. But if you're my size or even larger, then it is already a problem in the front. Also in the rear, not too much space, especially from the headroom and so on. So this makes people rather go for the practical choice, the SUV, the 3008. However, if you think, hey, maybe I'm not too big, I'm not too tall, I just love the exterior styling and I sit very well in this vehicle, then it is a nice way to drive a visually very attractive vehicle. And there were also sometimes some very good attractive leasing offers. And then you can say, hey, maybe I can have a decent price and drive this pretty cool exterior vehicle. However, because it drives very well, it's also fun to drive, the list price is still quite high, gotta say. So you have to watch out for good leasing rates, because it starts 40,000 euros. And then if you go for the plug-in hybrid in a GT, easy more than 50,000 euros, 55, and top trim is even at 56,000 euros. And that's of course too expensive for the vehicle. Definitely, I can say that. then again, it makes sense if you get these good leasing offers as well. What do you think about the 4.8 here in the facelift? Tell me in the comments, and now tune into more Peugeot video.